My European summer trip was inspired by a trip to England my senior year of high school in 2015. The trip made me so curious to see the rest of Europe. In high school, I was taking a lot of classes that involved global competence, and at this point in my senior year, I was also applying to colleges and eventually got denied from Towson. My travel partner Maddie and I had always been talking about a Europe trip, but neither of us thought we were going to go through with it. Growing up, I expected myself to go from high school straight to a 4 year university, so it was a difficult thing that I had to deal with. I went to community college and worked part time, but I felt like I still needed something to look forward to. This is when we made our trip official. Next thing you know it, I was packing my 40-liter backpack with necessities and left the US on June 7th, 2016. We started our 28-day journey in London. In my opinion, London is very similar to the United States. The difference was that I could consume alcohol legally. Also, the stereotype that London is rainy and cold is completely true. A common misconception that myself and many others have is that the Queen has full control over the people of England. However, I learned from my tour guide that no one really cares about the Queen. People pay respect to her, but there is no true hype behind her, and she is really for a show. When I thought of London, I always thought of Big Ben, the London Bridge, double-decker buses, and men in fuzzy hats. However, I learned that there was more to London, and not everyone was running around in suits trying to get to a meeting. One place in particular that was different than the stereotypical London was Camden Town, which was about 20 minutes north of Westminster, London. The town had an alternative feel, and it was highly diverse, from the people all the way down to the different food stalls in the market. I went into Paris with ethnocentric views of the French people and the Paris as a city. When Americans label the French as rude and Paris as dirty, I always believed it. I wish I could say they proved me wrong, but they didn't. The streets were constantly filled with trash and it smelled really bad. Also, the French were not kind. No matter how hard I tried to impress them, they were not for it. I also thought Paris was a city of love because of the Lovelock Bridge that it's famous for and all the movies that it's featured in. However, I didn't get this feeling here and thought that many other cities symbolized love in a better way. In my opinion, Rome was the city of love. Since half of my family is Italian, I kind of had an idea of how the people would be and an understanding of the culture going into it. I noticed a lot of differences between the Italian people and the American people. The Italians were very welcoming everywhere we went. They had a very warm personality, and I never felt threatened by them. When I'm in America, I notice that Americans don't always have that warm personality, and people are in a rush and don't have time to talk to others. While I was in Rome, I hung out with a lot of older people. In America, having relationships with people a lot older than you can be frowned upon. However, we met William in our hostel and he became one of our good friends while traveling Rome. We hung out with him most of our time, and when I told people about him later, they freaked out because he was 28 hanging out with 18-year-olds, where this really would not always be acceptable in America. But we were all there for a common goal of travel, so our friendship was understood. In addition, I was talking to a guy I met named Domenico, and he explained to me that he thought American people were crazy and violent. He thought that people drank a lot and didn't know how to carry themselves respectively. And I noticed that the Italian people would get drunk but would never be noticeably intoxicated. I think this is because of the way Italians approach alcohol in general. From a young age, children are allowed to have glasses of wine with their meals, and alcohol consumption is a regular thing in most households. Since drinking hasn't become so demonized in their culture, it doesn't make people feel like they have to be rowdy and crazy when they are consuming it, and it allows them to drink in moderation. This is not the case in America. My tour guide in Rome also told me that I was well behaved, and he was surprised since he's not used to young Americans behaving after they have alcohol. Prague was very different from anywhere we went. However, the cuisine reminded me of down-home cooking in America. It was heavy but delicious. Also, they had an Apple Museum, which I thought was interesting because Prague did not seem very Americanized at all, when in fact its culture somewhat was. They also had a whole restaurant dedicated to James Dean, and in the clubs they played all American music going all the way to old school Nelly and Usher. In the United States, I noticed bars and clubs men do not dance freely to the music. I think that this is because dancing is feminized in the American culture and men do not want to show any sort of femininity. However, all throughout Europe, men were dancing all night long in the bars. I think that gender is more fluid in Europe. Amsterdam was exactly what I expected. The city has an edgy feel due to its legalization of marijuana and prostitution. I felt like I couldn't get in trouble for anything there. It was a used to having that much freedom, but it was still fun. The most shocking experience for me was the red light district. I do not have any pictures from there because photography is prohibited. However, it seems as though Amsterdam does a good job at protecting the women in these jobs. In the US, prostitution and any sort of sex work is frowned upon, and women are often criminalized instead. They have the Homo Monument, which is there to commemorate all gay men and lesbians who have been subjected to persecution because of their homosexuality. The monument has been there since 1987, and the United States just recently legalized same sex marriage. I feel like this shows the difference. My trip through Europe was a learning experience to say the least. Interacting with different cultures and people not only helped me learn about them, but helped me learn about myself as well. I considered myself to be an open-minded person until I realized I had all these preconceived notions and biases before going. Every city taught me something different, and I'm more than thankful I had the opportunity to explore, have fun, and learn at the same time.